You've stuck your webs and your podcast into my business for the last time, would be something that Dr. Octopus might say if we had him on this podcast, because the Geek History lesson on Dr. Octopus is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Four-Armed Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or villain, or Alfred Molina from popular culture.
Alfred Molina.
And teach you he's an icon, everything you need to know about them in about an hour. And as a Ringo Starr fan, I'm very excited to be talking about an octopus today.
I did not know where that reference was going. All right.
Really?
By the way, I want to, just because we started it off, we're going to take this podcast off the rails right in the corner here. I just want to, Alfred Molina corner. If you don't know, Alfred Molina is the guy from the very first sequence, the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very first Indiana Jones movie that says to Indy, "Give me the whip, I'll give you the idol." That's Alfred Molina. And when I found that out, it broke my brain. So there you go. Alfred Molina corner. All right, they're not here for Alfred Molina talk, although, what if you were? Alfred Molina talk?
I'll tell you about the time I saw him live on stage.
Let's get done. Everybody is here because of Dr. Octopus, because there is a movie called Spider-Man No Way Home, restarring Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. That's going to be coming out very soon. And so we thought this was the perfect time to talk about Dr. Octopus. Isn't it interesting? He's restarring as Dr. Octopus. We have brought him back. What a universe of nostalgia we live in. Isn't it great?
I think it's more interesting that Sony was like, hey, we made the greatest Spider-Man movie in animation. Now let's make it with a less interesting Spider-Man in live action.
Well, Alfred Molina, in my opinion, is in the greatest Spider-Man live action movie.
That's true.
So there you go. All right. So this episode was suggested by Willie Yip. And he is our TA for today. And Ashley, if anybody out there that is listening wants to suggest future lessons or future subjects, where can they do that?
You can do that at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, or on Twitter at GHL Podcast. There's a bunch of ways to contact us in all those places. People also like to request them in their honor roll reviews. We are a few months behind on them, so you are welcome to, but they might not be timely.
Yeah, you can. I would say you can totally do that, but we might be a little bit. We may not get your name. We may miss your name if you do it that way.
We got one coming up in the next couple episodes where someone's repping Max Mercury. People are still holding out for Max Mercury episode.
Well, you're going to be waiting a long
Maybe
longer.
Episode 500.
Real quick, everyone, we're getting to the end of 2021, and I want to shout out a very extra special listener on the podcast today. Ashley and I have been traveling for the holidays. We're going back to our native homeland in Canada. And we recently had some plane tickets be readjusted. And thankfully, for the first time in my entire life, the Air Canada Twitter account actually helped us. They switched the tickets and stuff like that. And then at the very end of all their messages, they said, hey, keep making great geek history lessons. And this was Terry from Air Canada. So I wanted to give Terry, if you're listening right now, thank you so much for saving our holidays and for saving the multiverse, as I'm going to tie it into this episode.
Thank you, Terry. We love you. You are truly a sweet baby angel.
He is. So Terry, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, let's get into the 10-cent origin, the first section of our podcast. Ashley, what is that?
That is where we tell you all the basics, who's its and what's its galores, in case you go to a sweet Spidey villain-themed cocktail party and someone doesn't know who Dr. Octopus is.
Which befuddles the mind, right?
Yeah, all but right. We live in a wild world.
Dr. Octopus, of course, is a Marvel Comics character. His first appearance as Dr. Octopus, he didn't appear as anything else, is in the Amazing Spider-Man. Do you want to guess the issue number?
1.
Number 3.
So close, but so far.
July 1963. He was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, of course. His alter ego is Otto Gunther Octavius.
You know what? Shame on his parents.
Yep. His parents are not great people, as we're going to learn. His team affiliations have been Sinister Six, the Masters of Evil, the Thunderbolts, the Legion Accursed, the Avengers, the Mighty Avengers, Horizon Labs, Hydra, and the Hydra Avengers. His notable aliases have been the Master Planner, the Master Programmer, the Bowery Bum. The Bowery Bum. That's not polite.
The Bowery Bum.
The Superior Spider-Man, the Superior Venom, the Superior Octopus, Dr. Elliot Tolliver, the Cosmic Superior Spider-Man, the Cosmo Spider, and the Cosmo Superior. His abilities are he's a brilliant engineer and inventor. He has a genius-level intellect. He is a superb strategist. Superb. He wears super strong and durable mechanical appendages, and he has telepathic control over his mechanical arms. And in some stories, we're not going to really hit on this that much. It is stipulated that Otto must have a sort of base level telepathy so that
to control the arms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is gone back and forth about whether he is slightly metahuman.
I like to believe that he is.
Okay.
Personally, that's my headcanon.
He's just tuned into the universe a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, and this is something I actually really love people's takes on Twitter at GHL Podcast. Maybe we'll put up a poll, maybe we'll forget, but I'd love to know where you come down on this. But I wanted to say, when you said the Cosmo Spider, sounds like a Seinfeld character.
Okay, all right. But I wanted to name check that because that is the only time we're going to talk about it.
Great.
Okay. Now let's get to the Meet Cute.
Oh, the Meet Cute is the second part of the podcast where we stole a term from romantic comedy writing and tell you where we meted a character and how cute it was.
Ashley, where did you meet Dr. Octopus?
I had from, I want to say Burger King, but it might have been McDonald's.
Okay.
The 90s animated series Doc Ock action figure.
From McDonald's?
It was McDonald's, or I think it might have been Burger King.
It was the child's kid toy.
Yeah, it was like a 3.5 inch.
It must have tied into the cartoon, I was saying.
It definitely did. And I really loved it. I love to make my red Batman, which I've talked a lot about on this podcast, fight the Dr. Octopus in the tub. All of my plastic toys went in the tub as a child. All plastic toys were bath toys in my house. So that is my first vivid memory is this Dr. Octopus toy.
You should try to find a picture.
Oh, I can definitely find a picture.
And share it on the socials. So I first encountered Dr. Octopus in the Clone Saga. The Spider-Man Clone Saga in the 1990s, because we'll get to talking about it a little bit later, but Doc Ock actually has a pretty pivotal part in the 1990s Clone Saga, and that's where I first encountered him, figure out who he was, and actually I sort of encountered his replacement, the Lady Dr. Octopus, before I encountered Otto.
Catherine Hahn.
Well, she's Catherine Hahn in Spider-Verse, but this is not Catherine Hahn.
I know.
You almost threw me off there. I was like, what?
Look,
what are you talking?
This is a Catherine Hahn podcast. We stand Catherine Hahn. ConHahn 2022. I still think we should make those t-shirts. HahnCon
2022. Make a note about that.
Sure.
We'll make a HahnCon.
Hey, if you want to design our HahnCon t-shirts, tweet us at GHL Podcast.
And if you want to know what this reference is about, go back and listen to the Agatha Harkness episode,
which I still can't believe I convinced you to let me do.
I can't believe that in less than 400 episodes in a podcast where we haven't even done Namor, that we've done Agatha Harkness.
We did Agatha Harkness before we did Dr. Octopus.
Dear Lord. Okay. Now, listeners, if you would like to support this podcast and also listen to not one, not two, but 3 exclusive Geek History Lesson podcasts, head on over to patreon.com/Jawiin. That's Jawiin. One of those pods is Geek History Lesson Extra, where we go more in depth on the main subject. And this week, we're going to be talking about some of the worst Spider-Man villains of all time, because I don't know about you, but I think Doc Ock is one of the best. But we've also talked about that Best Spider-Man Villains is a great episode. And
we're going to do a full-length episode.
I'll tell you what, hashtag Best Spider-Man, hashtag GHL Best Spider-Man Villain, and we'll do the episode if we get 50 tweets.
50
tweets.
0.
So we're going to talk about the worst Spider-Man villains over there at Patreon. We also have Jason and Ashley's Excellent Adventures, which is a podcast about our personal lives. And we have a podcast that I have so much fun that you guys get to hear on the feed very recently. Jason and Jeremy John about Justice League, where myself and my best friend Jeremy Skinner, we review Justice League, the animated series. And we're almost about to finish season 1. So go over there, Support the pod. Get yourself hours and hours of more Jason and Ashley content at patreon.com/Jawiin. Thanks to all the super friends who help us out over there.
They're the best. I love our super friends.
They are. And we have a pretty badass Discord. I'm just going to state that out right now. I love our Discord. So there we go. All right, Ashley, we're getting into the History 101.
Which is the main meat of the lesson where Professor Jason is going to give you the education that you deserve on Dr. Octopus.
Okay, so note that this is a podcast that is not about just reading and telling you about every single Dr. Octopus story. So
What?
Relax and chill on those comments, everybody. If you're brand new to the podcast, hello. But, you know, we don't need to comments about like, you forgot this story, you forgot that. Dr. Octopus, unlike some of the other characters we've covered on this podcast, I had to synopsize a lot because he is in a lot of stories. And I had to.
He's Spider-Man's best villain.
He is.
You can find me on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson.
I 100%.
He's the best villain.
He is the greatest villain of Spider-Man. Yes.
Besides Poverty, which is a very early GHL joke.
Yep. So, you know, I'm just covering the ones that I think are most important to his character and very relevant. Now, let's get to some publication history.
Woo!
Lee Stanley, Mr. Stanley himself, recounted, usually in creating a villain, the first thing, is Excelsior. This is a copy edit. I would think of was a name. And then I would try to think of, well, now that I've got the name, who's the character going to be and what will he do? For some reason, I thought of an octopus. I thought, I want to call somebody Octopus, and I want him to have a couple of extra arms just for fun. But then I had to figure out how to do that. So for many people, post this quote from Stan Lee, a lot of people sort of cite that Dr. Octopus is the man or the scientist that Peter Parker would have become or grown up into if he hadn't learned the lesson of with great power comes great responsibility.
Which is interesting because I would also contend that that is a fairly similar dynamic to Superman and Lex Luthor.
Interesting.
That if Superman were less noble and less good-hearted, he would have become power-hungry the way Lex does.
But and that's another reason why I think Dr. Octopus is his greatest villain. All right.
Well, also, Dr. Octopus is a vowelism. It's not a slant rhyme because it doesn't rhyme, but it's got the same vowel cluster sound. So, like, it is satisfying to hear and to say.
Yes. All right. So let's get to his comics origin. He was born in New York to a lower class.
Imagine that.
To a lower class family. He was an only child, and Otto was raised by an overbearing mother and an abusive father. His dad did hit him. During his youth, Otto would receive many beatings at home and at school from bullies, and his father would roar at Otto to use violence to fight back against his bullies, while his mother would always caution and say, do the opposite, like show them peace, show them the better side. Otto eventually, after school, was awarded a scholarship for MIT, and shortly before he got the scholarship right when his father died in a workplace accident. He became obsessed with schoolwork after his father's death, and Otto applied himself even harder and harder to his studies in science. Now, after graduation, Otto was hired by the U.S. Atomic Research Center. You can really tell it's the 60s, right?
This is so Marvel, yeah.
And this is where he invented the chest harness with the tentacles that would go on to make him a famous supervillain. Now, Ashley, in the story in their reality of the U.S. Atomic Research Center, what do you think was the original purpose for these tentacles in the Stan Lee and Steve Ditko comic? Like, what was the in-world reason why Otto built this four-armed contraption?
Okay, so if I were pitching this and I had to give you the reason...
I've given you a couple of clues. Pretty big clues.
To me, and I want to say it's going to be sillier than this because it's the Silver Age, but...
It's actually not that silly.
You know how when we deal with radioactive materials, you stick your arms through those little tubey things and you're basically on the other side of a wall and it's in a safe room? I want to say that it's so that they can deal with the dangerous matter and you are at a safe distance from it. Hey, I'm a professional comic book writer. I don't know. You could have told me it was to play basketball and I would have been like, sure, sounds right.
No, it was exactly that. It's to help manipulate radioactive substances from a safe distance behind a lead wall.
Yeah.
And also because it was the 60s and everything's nuclear.
Yeah. which makes sense. But it's so funny. And we've done enough of these geek history lessons and now read enough comics over the years that as you describe this, I'm like, this is the most Marvel 60s concept for a villain. And I love it.
Again, Amazing Spider-Man #3.
Yeah.
So,
like, there's a direct line between Fantastic Four and this storyline.
Yeah, yeah. Now, after Otto made this miraculous invention, he had a couple of bad breaks. He asked his girlfriend, Mary Anders, to marry him. Hooray! But his mother didn't approve and ordered him to break up with Mary. So
marry her anyway.
No, he broke up with her.
Marry her anyway.
No, he broke up with her.
I know.
So boo.
Ooh.
Then when Otto told Mary the engagement was off, they got in an argument. And Mary had a heart attack and died during the argument. Oh, no!
Jesus. Absolute Christ.
So Otto was kind of having a bad month. Otto became withdrawn, sullen. He threw himself into his work just like after his father's death. And he was throwing professional, operational caution to the wind.
Okay.
There was a radiation leak in the lab.
Of course.
Which was caused by an explosion, which was caused by his negligence. And it fused the harness and the limbs onto his body. The radiation simultaneously caused mutations in his brain, allowing him to have direct control over the arms through telepathy. He was driven insane by the accident, and the damage it caused to his body and mind, this is what led Dr. Octopus to become dedicated to a life of crime. A fun fact, the accident is also what made his eyes sensitive to light, which is the reason why Dr. Octopus always wears like little goggles or sunglasses.
The sun tanning goggles.
Yes, which sometimes some writers and artists forget and some use. I like the goggles, so I like that. But
goggles in real life, dumb. In anime or comic books, always cool. Always very cool.
Yes. Now, Otto, after the accident, he woke up. He was like, crime! And give me some goggles. He was in a hospital, obviously. And he started holding the medical staff hostage. Otto forced them. He was like, gather me lab equipment so I may continue my work for crime.
I need one. The idea that he's just like, I don't know, bring me an ultrasound machine, like whatever you have I can work with. But your Dr. Octopus is like the Venture Brothers version of the Dr. Octopus. Is so funny to me.
But Spider-Man showed up, of course.
Good for him.
Because this was Amazing Spider-Man.
Good boy.
Dr. Octopus easily defeated Spider-Man.
Because he's like 12 times the size of him.
Well, he'd only had 2 comic books before this. He had no idea.
He only had 2 comics. I'm sorry, I've only had 2 comic books. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, plus he was 16.
Yeah, he was an actual child.
Yeah.
16-year-old me couldn't have saved squat.
No.
Sorry to any 16-year-olds listening.
Doc Ock soon took control of the nuclear research facility and again squared off in a second battle against the wall crawler, who was able this time to defeat Doc Ock sort of with a sucker punch to the jaw.
He's 16, of course. Good job, Peter.
Honestly, Pete kind of got lucky.
Well,
to be honest with you, I'm surprised that Amazing Spider-Man #3 didn't end the series and then it became the Amazing Octopus of Crime.
No, that didn't happen until Dan Slott got his hands on the character.
Yeah. I mean, Pete barely wins this battle.
It's interesting because just with this sort of brief history that you've given me so far, Doc Ock is Otto's very similar to Peter. They've had a lot of the same struggles. They have the same sort of brilliance, which I think is why later on he kind of becomes a mentor to Peter in some versions. But this is very reminiscent to me of our Peter Parker episodes.
Yeah. Now, Ashley, we talked about the harness of Dr. Octopus,
Yes.
his tentacles.
Yes.
How many harnesses do you think Doc Ock has had from the start of his career to now in 2021 comic book continuity? Do you have? I will throw out a guess.
It's tough because
it's also smaller than you think.
Oh, there's like an actual answer? I'm not just making a joke.
No. There is an actual number of how many tentacle Dr. Octopus harnesses he's had.
Well, if it's fused to a spine, he can only ever have one.
Well, he's been unfused from it several times.
I know that. Can you give me? Can I get one hint? Is it less than 20?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna say 8.
You're still high. It is actually 3.
3?
Yep.
Oh, I see. Like Amazing Spider-Man, number 3.
I don't know if that's intentional or not.
It's not.
So the original harness is titanium.
Sure.
Then he got a second adamantium harness.
I thought it was adamantium.
And his current harness is an element. No, it's called carbonadium.
Sure, great.
Now, just to give you a little bit about all of his harness sort of operate on the same kind of structure here. The arms are powerful enough to allow him to walk up sheer concrete walls and move very quickly. He can almost outrace a train. It has been seen like if all 4 tentacles are going at full speed.
Wow.
They're also able to use to grab items, both small and large, and he can swing things at clubs. And sometimes in certain stories, we've seen the arms themselves transform and modify, but generally that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
They're generally just clawy things.
That is my preference.
Mine too.
That they're like hands.
Mine too. He's beaten. By the way, here are some of the villains. We're not going to touch on this very much, but Dr. Octopus, I think, because he's such a cool villain, I really think he's a cool villain.
I do too.
He has fought a lot of the Marvel Universe.
Interesting.
And here are some of the people that he has beaten. That's how strong these arms.
Okay.
He's beaten Daredevil.
Interesting. I don't know if I buy it.
He's beaten the Hulk.
Definitely don't buy it.
And
well, he is smart.
He has torn apart Iron Man's armor.
I do believe that. I think if you can get the jump on him, I do think Doc Ock could do that. Interesting.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
So those are some of the villains that in continuity, Dr. Octopus, or heroes that Dr. Octopus has beaten.
Wow.
So like all the heroes created and written in the Silver Age, Otto or Doc Ock, he goes through a series of adventures where he fights Spidey. He goes to prison, then he escapes, and it happens all over again. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So here are some minor beats. We're not going to cover every story. Very early on, he kidnapped Betty Brant, J. Jonah Jameson's assistant.
Yep.
And then was sent back to prison. Doc Ock then went after a gangster named Blackie Gaxton.
Oh, boy.
And then was sent back to prison. And one time when he was in prison, a team of specialists found a way to remove his harness. Now he was believed by the prison to be normal again. Otto was cured, right? And without his power, they placed his tentacles in another part of the facility. They locked him up. And it was at this time, for the first time ever, that Otto showed that he could control his arms mentally, even when separated over short distances. He used this to his advantage. He summoned his tentacles to return to him and escaped from prison. Now, this is an ability that would come up time and time again. There have actually been stories where the tentacles have crossed the country to find Otto, where they could like sort of sense him.
Why don't they just shoot them into space?
I don't know.
There's so much space.
Well, because think about it, right? Think about sort of a military complex society, okay?
Yeah.
You have this advanced technology. If we could only figure out a way to duplicate it, but where it wouldn't make somebody insane for crime, then it would be very helpful.
Yes.
But
that would be the thought, yes.
The logical answer is, shoot the damn things into space.
Or
and be done with
incinerate
it,
them.
You know?
And look, I know this is comic books, so we got to keep them around.
Yeah,
but just shoot them into space.
But I wanted to mention this again, the telepathic link, especially since it's such a big part of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 movie.
Yes, that's my favorite origin of Dr. Octopus is when the tentacles are coming up.
Well, the tentacles are like alive in that movie.
Yeah, they're eerie.
Yeah. No, Ashley, we're going to talk about your favorite supergroup. You love them. We've talked about them so many times before.
Teen Titans.
No, the Sinister Six.
Oh, my favorite. I do want listeners to know, I have been pitching Best Sinister Six for literal years.
Keep turning you down.
We're waiting for the right moment. We will do it. But
when they finally make that Sinister Six
I have been
movie.
pitching it for literal years.
So, Ashley, as we've talked about before, Dr. Octopus is the founder of the Sinister Six.
Sure.
So,
if you say so.
I believe I asked you this on the original Spider-Man podcast.
How dare you?
Many, many years ago, and I think you got it horribly wrong.
I can't wait to do it again.
Let's see in 300 episodes, Ashley. Can you name the original members of the Sinister Six, the first Sinister Six group? And
no.
Yeah.
No.
Obviously, Otto is one.
Not Falcon. Vulture.
Correct.
Rhino.
Incorrect.
Ouch. There's no ladies on it, right? It's all dudes.
It's all dudes.
Electro.
Correct.
Spectacular. Lizard. No, that's wrong.
Incorrect.
Is there a goblin?
Nope. Norman doesn't join groups. Come on.
That's true. The original
Norman Osborn, everybody.
Sinister.
You have
not
three
Norman
more.
Lear. Oh my God. Venom is too late.
Just guess Spider-Man villains.
I am trying to. I think it's
Think
revealing.
about some of them that have already been in movies.
Sandman,
Correct?
Green Goblin, it's Spider-Man, and then it's Venom, and then it's I don't know who the Andrew Garfield villains are.
Who did Jake Gyllenhaal play?
Oh, Mysterio.
Correct. And who I can't remember the actor's name. The gentleman who played John Lennon in Nobody. He was also Kick-Ass. He was in Godzilla. He has been announced as this Spider-Man villain in a solo movie.
Oh boy, I don't know.
I can't help it. Kraven the Hunter.
Oh,
is the sixth one.
I didn't think Kraven would have been around.
Is it Aaron Taylor Johnson?
Yes.
Bad Quicksilver.
Yes.
Well, I should.
Yeah.
You know what? He was great in the part.
He's not a bad actor, but that's not hashtag not my Quicksilver.
I actually think he's a great actor.
Right.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so Doc Ock gathered all
I think I did really good.
You did.
I just
well.
want to pat myself on the back.
I just gotta say, by the time we hit episode 600, I hope you get all 6.
Look, it took me about 150 episodes to learn the crises, and we don't bring the Spider-Man villains.
I don't know. I still don't know if you know them all.
I mostly know the order they go in. So if we skip a crisis,
all right.
But thank you for I think really illustrating our telepathic bond as I struggled through this.
There you go. So Doc Ock gathered all these people because they had faced and also been defeated by Spider-Man like him. And he tells the villains that only together can they defeat Spider-Man. And although Otto has an end game into this plan.
In Avengers Endgame?
His plan is to send all 5 of these guys against Spider-Man. And he actually believes that Spider-Man will beat them all. And once they fail to kill their foe, Otto then thinks that he can step in because Spider-Man will be weak and tired and worn out from the other 5 villains.
That's high key a very good plan.
Yeah.
Like, it's not dumb at all.
Yeah. But it doesn't work because Spider-Man sucker punches him again and Doc Ock is sent to prison.
Peter knows what works. He's a genius.
Then Otto escaped, got himself to an underwater lair, and changed his name to the Master Planner.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yep.
An underwater lair?
In New York.
I guess he's an
He's an octopus. Yeah.
Ew.
It's probably in the Hudson Bay. No, that's not in New York.
That's in Canada. The Hudson River is in
Hudson River. That's what I was going
But
for.
I was like, is it the East River or the Hudson? They're both really dirty.
So his goal was to develop a radiation ray in which he would rule the world. And his plan was fated to entwine with Spider-Man's when Aunt May fell sick. Now, Peter...
She's like 80, so...
I don't know how old she's supposed to be. It's weird. Her age bops around quite a bit.
Yeah.
I would say definitely at this time she's more towards the elderly, but it's interesting as Spider-Man stories have gone on, we've de-aged
We made her
May.
sexy.
Well, we've made her Marissa Tomei.
Yeah. Who is sexy.
And doesn't have gray hair.
Yeah.
So Peter, in early Amazing Spider-Man adventures, gave Aunt May a blood transfusion. Now, Ashley, what's the problem with that?
Oh, Peter's got radioactive Spidey blood.
He has radioactive blood because of the 60s and everything's tied to nuclear energy.
Yeah.
So, it's killing out Aunt May.
Yeah.
So, Peter found out that there is a formula that could help her. Unfortunately, that formula was stolen by the Master Planner / Doc Ock to further his plans. So, Spider-Man tracked Doc Ock to his underwater base. In the ensuing fight, Spider-Man became trapped underneath a collapsed building, and seemingly doomed to his death, Spider-Man was ultimately able to draw upon the sheer force of his own will to summon the strength to escape. This is the very famous Spider-Man moment called "If This Be My Destiny," the Amazing Spider-Man number 31 to 33.
And 33 is the cover.
This is the cover.
Yes, where he's pushing.
We all, comic fans, if you know Spider-Man.
I'll share it.
Yes, we all know this moment. It was homaged in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes.
So when he's like, ah! Peter David, we've talked about him on the podcast before, creator of Spider-Man 2099 and very famous Spider-Man writer, Aquaman writer, he observed and has said this: After Spider-Man's origin, this 2-page sequence in Amazing Spider-Man number 33 is perhaps the best-loved sequence from the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko era. In fact, this story was chosen as number 15 in the 100 greatest Marvel moments of all time in a poll taken in 2001. And editor Robert Greenberger, who we've talked about in this podcast before, wrote in his introduction to the story that these 5 pages are a modern-day equivalent to Shakespeare, as Peter Parker's soliloquy sets the stage for his next action.
I mean, none of them are wrong. I've read these 3 issues. They're fantastic, particularly this sequence. You know, it's so funny because I'm trying to think of what other Spider-Man stories kind of might stack up in this. And like Spider-Man No More is kind of the next thing that comes to mind for me.
Yes, it's interesting. I would almost argue that if you're talking about classic Spider-Man stories, it's hard for this one to not be number 1. Because it has his best villain.
I think it's between this and the death of Gwen Stacy.
Aunt May is in trouble.
Yep, which we love.
And he overcomes...
He literally stands up,
pure will.
stand up, stand up, Spider-Man, stand up, yeah.
So again, Ashley will share a picture. You guys are good to see it, but you all know this cover. So Doc Ock again went through a series of nefarious deeds that kept ending up in him in prison. For example, he had a battle with Spider-Man that resulted in Captain George Stacy's death. Who is that, Ashley?
That's Gwen's daddy.
That is Gwen's dad. Yes, Doc Ock is the one responsible for that.
No, I saw the movie. It's the lizard.
He attempted to wed May Parker, Aunt May, in order to acquire an island with an atomic plant, which she had recently and unknowingly inherited in a will.
That is a lot of people's plans in various Spider-Man stories, is to marry Aunt May. I will say she is a hot ticket.
I thought you meant to get a nuclear facility, because that's my plan.
Also that.
That's my 2022 goals.
I love that for you.
Hashtag squad goals, get a nuclear facility.
We would be so rich if you had a nuclear facility.
He also attempted to poison New York with printer's ink. He battled the Punisher and Spider-Man.
Oh, sure.
He battled the Owl. And during the Secret Wars storyline, Dr. Octopus was taken to the Beyonders battle world, where he fought a horde of heroes and plotted against Dr. Doom for the leadership of the group of villains.
Yes, yeah.
Then after this, Doc Ock kind of became less of a threat. And here's why. So Doc Ock went to war with the Owl, who is sort of a kingpin-like gangster who looks like an owl. Kind of a lame villain. Spider-Man and the Black Cat. Ashley, do you want to explain who the Black Cat is?
The Black Cat is Spider-Man's version of Catwoman.
Yeah, basically. Felicia Hardy, she's a jewel thief.
She's literally Catwoman.
And she's more attracted to Spider-Man than she is Peter Parker.
Also because Peter Parker's a child.
She's sort of his adventurous college fling.
Yeah. She's the hot older woman.
Yes. So Spider-Man and Black Cat attempted to intervene. Doc Ock beat the crap out of both of them. And the confrontation actually left Black Cat near death.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Peter was distraught, and he was angry, and he was sad. And he figured that the only way that he would be able to beat Doc Ock was he was like, I will have to basically die. But I have to go all. I have to go all, and I've got to kill this guy.
And those are the superhero stories that we love because it's the ultimate sacrifice.
So it's an amazing story. Peter basically goes to all of his friends and says goodbye because he thinks he's going to die. And the story is basically Spider-Man beats the holy living hell out of Dr. Octopus. He sucker punches him to kingdom come, basically. This is actually in a great Bill Mantlo story.
Icon.
Yeah, Bill
Mantlo. If you like Guardians of the Galaxy,
it's Bill Mantlo.
You love Bill Mantlo.
Yeah, he had a great run in The Spectacular Spider-Man. And this is where the story is told. So it is said that after this storyline, that Doc Ock sort of took on an inherent fear of Spider-Man because he saw how far Spider-Man was willing to go. And to be honest with you, this sort of neutered Doc Ock in comic book storylines for almost a decade.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's
Do you think someone from editorial was like, he is too powerful?
Maybe so.
We have to take him back a step or two.
Maybe so. Maybe they were worried that he was becoming like, maybe they didn't want him to become Spider-Man's big bad.
Or maybe like against an actual child.
Well, at this point, he's like in his mid-20s, Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. I thought he was closer to 18, so that's my mistake then.
He's in like college right now.
Then never mind.
So it's a great storyline, but we're going to kind of skip past that period. But I wanted to, when I grew up in comic books, Doc Ock was kind of a joke. He was kind of like, who's the overweight guy with the bowl cut? This is kind of what starts that.
I will say around the 90s, maybe the late 80s, they start giving Otto like a real haircut, like the way normal people, and it's still mostly the bowl cut, still kind of that little Beatles cut, but around then the hair gets a lot more stylish.
And also the movie in 2004 does a lot to redeem him as well.
Yeah, because Alfred Molina's cool.
And the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon.
Yes. Yeah. But he has a bowl cut in the cartoon.
Yes, but he's actually like a real threat in that cartoon.
He's the big bad of that series.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's probably more the Green Goblin in that show.
Oh, interesting. Maybe it's
or
just
Hobgoblin. Actually, you know what?
It's my memory is that it's...
Actually, you know what? Thinking about it now...
Morbius is also in that, too.
I kind of think the big villain of that cartoon is the Kingpin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, Ashley, I want to ask you, so Spider-Man beat the holy living hell out of Dr. Octopus,
yep.
caused a 10-year fear-mongering.
Yeah.
And what do you think this tells us about Spider-Man, Ashley? Or what does this tell us about Peter Parker?
Oh, that's interesting. I think this is definitely, if you're looking at the timeline of Peter Parker in publication history, I think this is probably a bit of a leveling up. I think this is a maturation
this is like
of the character.
This is around mid-80s.
Kind of like, I would equate it based on about how old we're guessing he is to sort of the way that you kind of have your last growth into adulthood when you leave university or when you strike out on your own. So I think this is definitely a power up for Spider-Man.
Nice. For me, it says you don't mess with his booze.
Okay.
You don't mess with Spider-Man booze. You don't tug on Superman's cape, and you don't mess with Spider-Man booze.
That's really funny. Now I just want a piece of fan art of like all the Robins hanging off his cape.
Ashley, I want to ask you, I don't know if we've talked about this before. Who is your preferred Spider-Man boo?
Oh, Mary Jane.
Yeah?
And it's because I love, and we've talked about it on the show before. I think we did an episode on it. In Spider-Man Blue.
We did do an episode about that. Go check it out, everybody.
There is, it really, I like Gwen Stacy better than Mary Jane, but I think Mary Jane is his, I don't believe in soulmates, but his soulmate.
His actual soulmate, yeah.
And I like in Spider-Man Blue, the moment at the end where she comes up and she's like, I miss her too. I like the idea that they were this trifecta because I look at Gwen the way you look at Lana Lang for Superman.
Oh, interesting.
So she's like the first crush and the seminal crush, but they were never going to be together. Yeah. It was always going to be Mary. But tell me who your preferred boo is.
I like Mary Jane, but I think it's Gwen Stacy.
Tell me why.
I think
at Jawiin, Jawiin.
I won't read any of those comments, everybody, or the death threats. I think that Gwen is the first person that sees the potential in Peter Parker.
Ooh, I love that.
The potential that he hides, because that's what Spider-Man is to him, right? It's the place where he can feel comfortable, he can crack jokes, he can be super smart, because in high school he gets beat up for all those same things.
And he's popular.
As Spider-Man. Well, I mean, except for the...
But with great fame also comes great responsibility.
And Gwen is the first person to see Peter as that. I think she's the first person that can like pierce through the veil that is his defenses and his insecurities. So, and I don't know. I like Mary Jane. I really do like Mary Jane as a character, and I like love their romance and stuff like that. And I love that. It is in my headcanon that they get married and they
have Mayday.
And they have Mayday.
Yes.
They have Mayday and they have Benjamin. Like the MC2 continuity in my head is canon.
Absolutely. Me too. Yeah. And she puts on Uncle Ben's suit.
But I also do believe that Gwen is the person that Peter can never let go of.
Yes. Yeah. But I also think Mary knows that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's like a sore spot between them.
Well, that's why when we talked about Spider-Man Blue a long time ago, that's the thing I love about that story is that that's why Mary is such a great... a
great gal.
She's a great gal and she's a great wife is because she can realize that. And I also liked that in that story, they made them friends.
Yes,
instead
I do
of enemies,
instead of
which
rivals.
Is very trope.
Yeah, it's the Betty and Veronica thing, right?
Yes.
It's like you could maybe have been rivals, but it's more interesting if you were friends.
All right, now enough of these boos. We got to talk about Doc Ock.
We got to talk about Doc Ock's boos.
Well, Doc Ock sort of does become a boo of Spider-Man. We're going to get to that.
He also gets a boo in Superior Spider-Man.
That's right. Now, shortly after, his defanging,
That's an interesting phrase you picked.
I guess detentacling is what I should have said.
Oh my God.
Doc Ock was able to learn Peter Parker's secret identity. But it was fine because he was brutally murdered by Kane with a K.
Wow.
Kaine.
Oh, yes.
Now, Ashley, this is not how it actually happened, but I'm going to ask you a question here.
Sure.
Because I'm going to ask you, do you know who Kane is? And I'm going to give you a clue because Kane killed Doc Ock with a sucker punch.
So this is a nasty throwback joke to our original Peter Parker episode. Kane is a clone of Spider-Man.
Yes. Yes, he is. He is
Scarlet. Is he Scarlet Spider?
He becomes the second Scarlet Spider.
Okay, yeah.
Kane was the Jackal, the person who cloned all the Peter Parkers. Kane was the first deformed clone of Peter Parker. He continued to degenerate. He became further deformed. He became mentally unstable. He actually killed Doc Ock with a neck snap.
Okay, Wonder Woman.
So, and he becomes the second Scarlet Spider after Ben Reilly. Now, I will say to everybody out there, there is an interesting storyline in Spider-Man: The Clone Saga, and if you guys want a Spider-Man: The Clone Saga geek history lesson, please suggest it. We'll do it. It would be a very interesting story.
It's been suggested.
It would be a very interesting lesson to cover before the next Spider-Verse movie next year.
Oh, interesting.
So, but enough about clones because Doc Ock doesn't stay dead for long. Octavius's student, Carolyn Traynor, took over as Dr. Octopus 2 until the original Otto was resurrected by a branch of the mystical ninja cult known as the Hand. When he is resurrected, he is revealed to have no memory of Spider-Man's true identity.
That's convenient.
As the discovery was not recorded on the computer chip that was used to reconstruct his memories. Because as we all know, mystical ninja cults love microchips.
Love technology.
So always keep your
Do
mind...
you think it was like 4 gigs in the 90s? 2 gigs?
I mean, it wasn't even a gig, Ashley. It was like if you had 36 megabytes, you would be considered big. I remember we had those zip drives, and I want to say
oh my God.
I want to say a zip drive was like only like 50 megabytes, and we were like, that's so much information.
I remember having a technology corner, ancient technology corner. I remember having a card for my digital camera that was 250 megabytes.
Ooh, big spender.
Yeah, fancy.
So anyways, the lesson of that is to keep your mind chip hard drives active, kids, and backed up.
Really.
So now Doc Ock decided to kick it up a notch. Why? Because he found out he was dying again.
Oh, I thought he got frosted tips.
Nope. He learns after his years of fighting with Spider-Man and other heroes, they have irreparably damaged his body.
Boy, I can't imagine why.
Yep. Leaving him with only months to live. Now, Dr. Octopus, now in telepathic control of 4 additional cybernetic limbs.
Unnecessary.
They are unnecessary. And several Octobots, little octopusy little things.
I'm familiar with the Octobots.
Or what some would call overcompensating. With the Octobots, he takes control of all technology in New York, and he hopes to transform the city into a utopia that is totally controlled by him. But of course, he's defeated by Spider-Man. His next plan is to use goblin blood, the blood that has been infected with the Norman Osborn Green Goblin serum that gives you super strength and makes you go cuckoo bananas. He wants to get that to cure him, and that fails too. And then in the Ends of the Earth storyline, Doc reteams with his favorite team, the Sinister Six, and with his health deteriorating. Did I say that right?
Yep, deteriorating.
And death coming soon, he uses what he calls octo satellites to scorch the earth by harnessing the greenhouse effect. He announces his plans to the world and offers to reverse the effects of global warming in exchange for the world's total obedience. And he does this all from his underwater base. Remember that place, Ashley?
And Greta Thunberg streams in live and says, shame on you.
Spidey this time teams up with the Avengers because he's a member of the Avengers at this point.
Yep.
And he beats Dr. Octopus again.
Good for him.
Or so we think.
Sucker punch.
Yep.
Not the movie.
Using a modified Octobot, Octaviously. That should be a verb.
Hashtag Octaviously.
Octaviously Write that down.
I am.
Octaviously. You want to do something spectacular? You got to do it Octaviously. Now, Octavius successfully transfers his consciousness into Spider-Man in a last page reveal that was written by Dan Slott.
It's awesome.
It is really good.
Awesome.
I recently reread it, and it like slaps you across the face so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So it leaves him with Peter's memories and Peter's body. And Peter Parker is now in Dr. Octopus's dying body.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving Peter for dead, Otto decides to take on Peter Parker's life for his own. And then
he does that dance sequence from Spider-Man 3.
Yep. Yeah, he becomes bully Tobey Maguire, which is a meme now, which is so funny. It was then that Peter and Doc Ock's body tried to redo the body switch with Ock, but Otto had taken precautions to keep that from happening. And he put up a metal plate, basically, where it couldn't happen.
He put up a metal plate, like a conspiracy theorist.
Or I think it was a carbonadium.
Yes, yeah.
Peter, through this, though, was still able to connect with Otto's mind and forced him to relive all of Peter's moments, showing Dr. Octopus the meaning of with great power comes great responsibility and how much Dr. Octopus had wasted his entire life. As a result, Peter's personality traits engrafted onto Dr. Octopus. And Dr. Octopus, after Peter's death inside his body, inside of Dr. Octopus's body, decided to continue on as Spider-Man and make up as his past mistakes as the superior Spider-Man. And this leads into the storyline that gave Dan Slott more death threats than any writer should ever get in their entire life. And overall, Ashley, I want to ask you...
Well, no one should get any death threats.
Exactly.
Ever. But yes.
Do you like the Superior Spider-Man storyline / series?
Yes, it's amazing. It's superior. It's outstanding. It's one of the coolest new takes on Spider-Man without just inventing a new spider character, because I love Miles and I love Gwen and I love Silk, but sometimes I'm like, there are so many freaking spiders.
There's too many spiders.
It was really creative. I love Anna Maria, who's a huge part of this storyline, his love interest. I also love the way they play with her height with the art. Like sometimes she seems like a full-size person. Superior Spider-Man is amazing. And I hope people learned by reading it that if you don't like something, it's comics. It will go away.
Yeah.
Just wait. And it's unfortunate because, this storyline is wrapped up, so it's done now, but they keep sort of trying to like eat their cake and have it too. And I don't think that outside of this original run, I don't think there's room for this character in the 616. I
agree. And we're going to talk a little bit about everyone out there, you can actually request a fuller lesson on Superior Spider-Man.
There's more than enough.
But for here, I'm just going to give you the basic bullet points. So as the Superior Spider-Man, he defeated the new Sinister Six, his own team. He defeated the Vulture. And then many people, Peter's friends, started noticing changes in Peter's behavior. And Octavius decided to become more efficient, and he utilized thousands of spider bots, like the Autobots, to patrol.
They're cool.
Yep, to patrol the city. So thereby, they could take care of crimes that Peter never could in his life. So that way, he could have a social life and also be Spider-Man. Otto also enrolled at Empire State University when he learned that Peter was not a doctor. To get his doctorate, and he was like so offended that he's not a doctor. And then Peter meets Anna Maria Marconi, who becomes Peter's tutor for his doctorate.
I love her.
He also kills the villain Massacre while dressed as Spider-Man with a gun. He tricks then Mayor J. Jonah Jameson into giving the Raft, which is a superhero prison, as Spider-Man's base, and he calls it Spider Island. And he gets a whole henchman army, but the henchman army is for good. He meets Spider-Man 2099.
Which you love.
And he gets involved with the very first Spider-Verse event. And
it's a great part of Spider-Verse.
And he creates the company Parker Industries.
Yes, look, I know it's just a take on Stark Industries. It's not all that inventive, but like, to me, like, that is so interesting. Like, of course, Peter should own this huge, if we have to have people running major corporations like that, Peter Parker's the kind of person that you theoretically want in charge of it.
Now, eventually, Otto figured out that Peter's consciousness was still inside his brain. And to his shock, Otto could now hear Peter inside his mind. Eventually, the Superior Spider-Man faces off with Norman Osborn, who had returned and started calling himself the Goblin King. Norman figured out that Otto was in control of Spider-Man.
I mean,
very
Norman
quickly.
would know who Peter is better than anyone of the villains.
And it stunned Octavius.
Yeah.
So the Goblin King revealed that he had taken Anna Maria Marconi, his girlfriend, hostage, and Otto started searching the city for her. In the subway, he found himself in a battle, and he found himself with the decision to save a young child who was named Amy Chen. Otto hesitated, as there was a chance that by saving Amy, he would injure himself.
Yep.
And if he injured himself, he would not be able to find Anna Maria. The consciousness of Peter Parker, still in his brain, pushed Otto into saving the child, which Otto did, and Otto was not injured. And Otto then realized that he failed as the superior Spider-Man because he in his brain saw no way that he could save that kid and not injure himself. And Peter was able to find a way to save that kid and not injure himself. So Otto immediately decided to give Peter control back of his body so that Peter could save Anna Maria because he truly loved her. Octavius arrived to Parker Industries and proceeded to erase his consciousness with the scanner and let Peter Parker live fully again. There's a great moment when the reveal happens, actually in Superior Spider-Man, where Spider-Man shows up again and he puts on his old costume and he goes to fight Norman.
Yep.
And Norman calls him Otto. And I can't remember what the joke is, but like Peter makes a stupid joke about his underwear or something like that. And Norman goes, "Oh God, it's you." So Doc Ock died again. And that's the bare bones of Superior Spider-Man. There is more than enough to talk about again. And again, we've been suggesting a lot of full episodes. That's just to go show you that Dr. Octopus crosses so much of the Marvel Universe.
And so many key moments in the Marvel Universe.
So I'm going to throw out another hashtag here. Anticipation of Spider-Verse 2. If you want to do Superior Yes, hashtag Superior Yes, at GHL Podcast on Twitter, we will do full-on Superior. We could have a Spider Month if we wanted to do it.
Ooh, Spider Month.
Do we want to do a Spider Month?
I love that.
Okay, so hashtag Spider Month if you want to throw it out there. If you want to, whenever Spider-Verse comes out next year, I think it's November, we could do a Spider Month. We could do the Spider-Verse event. We could do Superior Spider-Man.
We could do the Spider-Man timeline.
We could do the Spider-Man time. We could do the Clone Saga. We could kick off all these weirdo kind of fun Spider events. We have to bring in some other guest professors because I don't think I could cover that much.
For sure. We can also look at we have a 400 item suggestion list. I'm sure there's a couple things on there we could cross off.
So Doc Ock is actually not dead.
What?
He's later revealed to have survived by implanting his mind in the Living Brain, which is a robot that worked at Parker Industries. Octavius later finds out that his original corpse has been stolen by the new Jackal so that it could be cloned. And Otto survived by transferring his consciousness into the Jackal's proto-clone, which is actually kind of a hybrid Peter Parker clone. Otto is now in a new Peter Parker body.
Wow, imagine that.
Yep, and with a new, more handsome body, he went to go work for Hydra as the Superior Octopus. But then eventually he still had some tinges of Peter Parker goodness inside his brain, and he returned to his costume as the Superior Spider-Man and to his own solo series, with Peter's memories and Anna Maria still influencing his decisions, as Otto would go on to remake himself and call himself Elliot Tolliver. But eventually, because Otto, as a Superior Spider-Man, has participated in basically every Spider-Verse event.
Yes, yeah.
Spider-Verse, Spider-Geddon, I think there's another one. Otto would
Spider
be...
Island.
Oh, that's not a Spider-Verse event.
I know.
Otto would be targeted by a variant Norman Osborn who would actually become an evil Spider-Man on his Earth. And he feuded with the Superior Spider-Man. And to defeat this Norman Osborn, this evil Spider-Man, Otto needed the one ally that every Spider-Man writer eventually gets around to using. And Ashley, would you like to make a guess about who this ally is that Otto pulls in, that every Spider-Man writer uses when Spider-Man gets in trouble?
Death.
Nope. I'm talking about Mephisto, the devil.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Everyone's favorite pal, Mephisto.
Why are people so interested in Mephisto?
I'll tell you what, 2021, the year of Mephisto.
Yeah,
Just gonna
truly.
say it. Every time there was like a weird Easter egg, people were like, even in Squid Games, people were like, Mephisto! So, Mephisto showed up.
Great.
And said, hey, Otto, I'll give you your mind back to how it was before you joined with Peter, before all your times of Spider-Man, and I'll give you your original body back. This would allow for this fake body, this Elliot Tolliver, to convince Variant Osborn that there was no one left to kill, that there would be no superior Spider-Man. So Anna was there, and she pleaded with Otto not to do it, but he did it anyway.
Yeah, because he's a bad guy.
So Mephisto altered some of Otto's memories. Otto remembered some of his heroics as a superior Spider-Man, but he doesn't remember like any of the time as the superior Spider-Man. Without Peter's influence, Otto quickly returned to crime. And he's been searching around trying to fill in the missing gaps in his memories because he knows that he has a hole. He came across the newest Spider-Man villain called Kindred. This
I remember
like
this.
demon centipede guy. Who snuck one of his centipedes into his ear and convinced Otto to reform his favorite team, the Sinister Six.
Yay!
And
Is there a lady on it this time? No.
Nope. And that's where we're going to leave Dr. Octopus right now because he's villainous, he's back in his old body, and he's got his old haircut again.
Because time is a donut and nothing changes.
Exactly. And just to let you know, he's appeared in most of the Spider-Man cartoons. Again, we actually said he was played by Alfred Molina in Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man No Way Home that we haven't seen yet. Molina talk. And if you don't know, and if you haven't played it, he is the big bad. Slight spoilers for a game that came out 2 years ago because he starts with the game as a good guy. He is the big bad of the PS4 Spider-Man game, which is excellent, by the way.
Cool.
So there you go. That's the lesson on Dr. Octopus.
Yay! Good job.
So yeah, Spider Month. Hashtag Spider Month. Hashtag Superior Yes. Hashtag
Octaviously. Hashtag GHL Best Spider-Man Villains.
There you go. We could do that during the Spider Month as well.
We could. We could also finally do the Sinister Six.
I don't know about that one. Ashley, what's the next category?
The next section of the podcast is the recommended reading, where Professor Jason is going to recommend some books that you read if you want more Doc Ock in your life, or perhaps more accurately, more Otto Octavius in your life. And you can find those by going to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. There's these cute little widgets. You click on them, you buy the things that you're interested in your format of choice, and you steal money from Jeff Bezos and give it to us instead.
I'm going to say to Marvel right now, I can't believe there isn't a best Doc Ock stories or a Spider-Man versus... There was a Spider-Man versus Doc Ock trade.
I don't think they think
it's out of print.
Want it. Yeah.
It's out of print. And especially since he's coming back in this movie, I can't believe that they haven't made one of these for every one of those guys coming back. Like the best Electro, the best Lizard, the best... It doesn't exist.
Yep.
So this list, I'm just going to say, is a little lacking. But I blame it on Marvel.
Thanks, Marvel.
So the first one is
Marvel Collections.
The first one is Spider-Man Masterworks, Volume 1. It collects the first 10 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, including Doc Ock's first appearance.
Nice.
He actually appears in it more than once. So you're going to get a couple Doc Ocks. You're also going to get some other people in there, like the Lizard and all kinds of people. Spider-Man Big Time Volume 3.
Ooh, big time.
Is the series that collects Ends of the Earth. That's where Doc Ock threatens climate change on the world, global warming on the world. It's a really good story. It also is the setup to Superior Spider-Man, which leads me into my number 3 choice, Volume 1 of Superior Spider-Man, which also collects the first couple issues where Doc Ock does the mind swap.
Yes.
So you get to see how it happens. It doesn't just start with him as Spider-Man. So there you go. All right, now we're going to move into the teaching tweet.
Where in 280, we don't know anymore, characters or less, Professor Jason is going to sum up everything he just taught you about Dr. Octopus. And you can find this by going to our official account at GHL Podcast.
4 arms, a bowl cut, and a bad attitude don't make you superior to anyone, Dr. Octopus.
There you go. I think that was great.
There you go. There you go. I guess also I'd be like, I am dedicated to crime, or Octaviously. All right, now we're going to move into the honor roll, everybody. And that's where if you go over to Apple Podcasts and you leave us a 5-star review, no matter what you write, we will read your review on the air for helping us out in the Apple search algorithm. And if you're an international listener, you got to email us, take a screenshot of your 5-star review and email it to us at geekhistorylesson@gmail.com. We'll read it on the air. Ashley, who's joining the honor roll this week.
The first person joining the honor roll this week is Quicksilver88, who says, great podcast with awesome hosts that really know their comics history that makes each episode fun and entertaining. The episode on Green Arrow Quiver is great, and I'd love to hear you tackle Connor Hawk. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Green Arrow Rebirth, Longbow Hunters, Archer's Quest, and The Sounds of Violence. As you can tell, I love Green Arrow. We also love Green Arrow, and we love a self-aware review. So thank you so much.
Okay, I've never done this before, but I'm going to do it. Here we go. Action figure spotlight.
Hell yeah.
I have a bunch of Green Arrow action figures.
You do, yeah.
I kind of have a Green Arrow collection. So,
you kind of have a Green Arrow like Archer's Core in a lot of ways.
Correct. So I just wanted to swap that out. All right, let's go to the next one.
The next review is from Just Jazz 72, who says, finally, I have been looking for a great comic book history podcast for a while, and I have found it. It's appropriate that I discovered you two during the episode on one of my favorite characters, the Silver Surfer.
Oh, wow.
And what an episode. I have to catch up on some of the earlier stories, but listening to you two talk about the rich history from the beginning to Dan Slott's run was amazing. And yes, that was an amazing run, and your breakdown of it made it that much better. You two work well together, and the knowledge that you share makes these stories that much more worth reading. I am hooked, and I'll be going back to the beginning to catch up and be entertained by you two. Thank you. So thank you, Just Jazz 72, for your in-depth review. I really love that. And I also like that you wrote it like you were talking right to us because we're reading it. And thank you to Quicksilver 88. Welcome into the Teacher's Lounge. What's going on in there today, Jason?
Well, our newest tutor, Anna Maria, is there.
Yes.
And she's brought a cherry pie.
What does she teach?
She's a tutor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's a tutor for the entire school.
Yes. Okay, you're right.
She's a tutor for
all
doctorate degrees.
Subjects.
For all subjects. Yeah,
wow.
She's over there.
So she might be our smartest staff member.
Guaranteed. She's over there elbowing Catherine Hahn, who's in there.
Yeah, Jeremy Skinner.
They're trying not to step on Jeremy Skinner, who's asleep in the corner. It's fine.
She's our smallest but mightiest.
The room is gathering more people. The teacher's lounge. Like, people are staying. They're not leaving the teacher's lounge.
No, they live there.
And now we put 2 more people. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Every person that we bring in on the honor roll,
they don't leave.
They are stuck in that room.
Yeah, there might be over 1,000 at this point.
By the way, I will say this room is maybe 25 feet by 25 feet, so it's crowded.
Well, everyone's getting real intimate.
Yep. All right, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and download and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere where you can find podcasts. And if you got a friend out there that you know likes Spider-Man, please suggest this episode to them, because that's the easiest way that we grow this podcast is by you sharing your love of this show. We just saw everybody's Spotify Wrapped lists, and we love seeing everybody send us all the, like, oh, you were my number 1, you were my number 5, you were my number 4.
We were with a lot of really good company too.
Oh, we were an
very
excellent
honored.
But I'm very honored. We do an honor roll, but I'm very honored that we made a bunch of your lists. So that's so awesome there. Ashley, where can they follow us and suggest hashtag Spider Month?
Okay, so you can suggest all of this nonsense by following us at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, or hitting us up on Twitter at GHL Podcast. There's like a billion ways to contact us in all those places.
That's right. And you can follow Ashley on Instagram and Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jawiin. That's Jawiin. And don't forget to go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Jawiin, for the most obscure Spider-Man villains episode over there. You can only hear on Patreon. Ashley, hashtag stick around the end of the podcast where we make sure that everybody's stuck through the plugs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll ever see a version of Superior Spider-Man in live action? Do you think they'll do it?
In live action? No.
Please elaborate.
I don't. I think we could see one in an animated version. I think...
Like, you think there's, like, he might pop up in one of the animated Spider-Verse movies?
Yes, but I think per that email where they said Peter Parker can only be a straight white guy and we will never put anyone else in the Spider-Man suit, we will unfortunately not be seeing even a clone version of Peter Parker in the Spider-Man suit.
Well, it's so funny because then this will terribly time date stamp this podcast. So if you're listening in the far future and you've already seen Spider-Man 4 and Spider-Man 5 and
I would
Spider-Man
love to be
6.
wrong, honestly.
Well, because they just kind of sort of announced that Tom Holland's apparently going to be in 3 more Spider-Man movies.
Hooray.
And actually, one of the best takes on that was by an acquaintance of ours, William Bibbiani.
Well, I mean...
And he tweeted that he said, wouldn't it be amazing if you found out at the end of the first one of this new trilogy that it was secretly Otto Octavius as Spider-Man, and then they did 3 movies of that?
I just don't think
I don't think they'll do it.
major studios are brave enough
To do it.
to do it.
Yeah.
I would be, honestly, it would
knock my socks off if they did it.
It would make me like the movies more
Mhm.
in retrospect.
Mhm.
If they were playing that long a game, I just don't see it.
And it would mean more Alfred Molina, tying back to the first of this podcast, Molina talk.
Hashtag Molina talk.
Molina talk. Okay, Ashley, what do you think he's going to be wearing to the premiere? Do you think he's going to go with a classy tuxedo, or do you think he's going to go with a nice, like, maybe green Doc Ock color suit?
So if I were him, I would wear a green crushed velvet jacket to call back to Doc Ock's
jacket.
green jacket. Yeah, that's what I would do.
I'll tell you what, seeing him in these new trailers,
He looks great.
he looks really good.
He might look better now than he did in
I don't know
Spider-Man
about
2.
that. He looks pretty good in Spider-Man 2, but like he's aged very well.
Like a fine wine.
Yes. And that's been Molina Talk, everybody. And this has also been Geek History Lesson. Thank you so much for listening. I am Jason for Crime Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. And Professor Octopus, would you please dismiss the class?
Professor Octopus. The class is dismissed.